Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are breaking down a skill that's absolutely core for every anesthetist. And it's pretty much guaranteed to show up on your finals. Awake Tracheal Intubation, or ATI. So, let's get right into your study guide.
Okay, so picture this. You're in a high-stakes scenario, just like in your exams. You've assessed your patient, you've run through the checks, and you anticipate a difficult airway. So what's the gold standard? What's your go-to technique?
You got it. The answer is Awake Tracheal Intubation. It's considered the gold standard for a very good reason. It has incredibly high success rates and a fantastic safety profile. And, the real beauty of it, the reason it's so safe, is that the patient keeps breathing on their own. They maintain their own airway tone right up until that tube is confirmed to be in exactly the right place.
All right, let's break this down. We've set this up to be the perfect study guide. We're going to walk through when to do it, how to prep, the actual procedure, what to do when things go wrong, and of course, how you get good at it.
So first things first, why and when do we even choose ATI? Well, the simple answer is you should be thinking about ATI for any patient who has predictors of a difficult intubation or even difficult face mask ventilation. It's all about planning for success when you see a challenge coming. So if your patient has any of these factors, we're talking things like previous head and neck surgery, maybe some radiotherapy, trismus, a fixed neck, really severe obstructive sleep apnea, or an airway that's getting worse by the minute, ATI needs to be right at the top of your list. These are your big red flags.
Now, what's really fascinating here is just how few reasons there are not to do an ATI. I mean, sure, there are a few relative contraindications like a bleeding airway or an allergy to local anesthetic, but the only absolute deal breaker, the patient saying, no, that's it. And that makes this an incredibly versatile and totally essential skill to have in your back pocket.
Okay, this is a really crucial point. Success with ATI starts long before you ever bring a scope near the patient. It is all about the preparation. Look, this can be a high-stress procedure, and that meticulous, careful planning is what's going to set you up for a smooth, safe intubation. And this picture shows the ideal setup perfectly. Just look at that. The operator, the patient, the video screen, and the patient monitor are all in a straight line, a direct line of sight. This kind of ergonomic layout minimizes the physical and mental strain, and that lets the whole team just function at their absolute best. To handle the huge cognitive load that comes with this procedure, the Difficult Airway Society guidelines strongly, and I mean strongly, recommend using a checklist, just like this one. Think of it as your co-pilot. It makes sure everything, from your equipment checks to your backup plan, is systematically covered before you even start.
Okay, let's get into the 3 pillars of patient management that make this whole thing possible: oxygenation, topicalization, and, optionally, sedation. Getting these 3, OTS, right is absolutely fundamental to your success.
So this first one, it's completely non-negotiable. Oxygenation is mandatory. The technique of choice these days is high-flow nasal oxygen. Why? Because it's been shown to seriously reduce the chances of desaturation, and that buys you critical time and a much bigger safety margin. Next up, topicalization. Getting the airway properly numb is vital for your patient's comfort and their cooperation. This table here shows one really solid method: atomizing local anesthetic into the nose, the pharynx, and the larynx. But you have to remember that crucial safety limit for lidocaine. That magic number is 9 milligrams per kilogram of lean body weight. Do not exceed it. And finally, we have sedation. Now, this part is optional, but a little bit can really go a long way in helping the patient tolerate the procedure. The key word, though, is cautious. Over-sedation is a major, major risk. So ideally, it's managed by another person. And listen, it is never, ever a substitute for good topicalization. All right, the patient is prepped and ready. Now we get to the main event, performing the intubation itself. Let's dig into the 2 main ways you're going to do this. So your 2 main choices are flexible bronchoscopy, that's kind of the traditional workhorse, and video laryngoscopy, which, uses motor skills that are a bit more familiar to most of us. The truth is, both have really high success rates. We're talking over 98%. So the choice really just comes down to your patient, what gear you have available, and what you're most comfortable with. So the tube is in. Or is it? Before you even think about giving any anesthetic drugs, you absolutely must perform this mandatory 2-point check. Number 1, you have to directly see that tube pass through the vocal cords. And number 2, you must get a sustained capnography waveform. Only when you have both of those is it safe to proceed.
All right, let's talk about something that is so critical, not just for your exams, but for real-world patient safety, and that is knowing exactly what to do when things don't go according to plan.
The rule for how many attempts you get is simple, and you have to respect it. It's a maximum of 3 tries for the main operator, plus 1, and only 1, final attempt by a more experienced colleague if they're available. That's it. Remember that number, 3 plus 1.
If you hit that 3+1 limit, you must stop. You follow this algorithm from the Difficult Airway Society. The message couldn't be clearer. Stop what you're doing, keep the oxygen going, and call for help. This forces you to take a breath, think, and decide on the safest next step, whether that's waking the patient up and postponing, moving to a surgical airway, or in some cases, attempting a very high-risk general anesthetic.
So here's a good question. Given that ATI is done in less than 1% of all intubations, how do you actually get good at it? And how do you stay good at a skill you might not use that often?
The key is a really deliberate stepwise approach to training. You don't just jump into the deep end. You start with low-stress mannequins to get the basic motor skills down. Then you can progress to doing it on anesthetized patients with normal airways, then awake patients with normal airways, and only then do you tackle that predicted difficult airway. It's all about building confidence and competence safely, one step at a time.
Okay, here it is, your final summary slide. Exam time. If you remember nothing else, remember these 5 points. These are the absolute must-know takeaways from the guidelines. Knowing these inside and out is how you practice safely and effectively.
So we'll leave you with this final thought, a question to think about for your own career. This isn't just about learning a technique for an exam, right? This is a life-saving skill that you need to master for your patients. How are you going to do it? This explainer was based on the article Awake Tracheal Intubation from BJA Education, which was published in 2022.